surprisingly, they were also people who fell in love, people who had children, people who wanted to raise families, people who wanted better for their children than they had for themselves. And their wishes and their dreams and their desires resonated with me. And they resonated with me for a very particular reason. And I'm very candid about this in this book. They resonated with me because just as I began to study them and work with them in 2002, I embarked on an entirely new life of my own. I had been married for a very long time, very unsuccessfully, and when I ended that marriage after 20 years, which of course I was married when I was 15 years old. I don't want you guys to have any illusion about that. Anyway, you should laugh here. After that marriage ended, I had absolutely no intention of ever marrying again. I had a very interesting life. I did a lot of work overseas for the United Nations in war zones. And it was an interesting life, and it was an exotic life, and I had lots of boyfriends, and men who were going to be boyfriends, and men who had been boyfriends, and wonderful family, and a wonderful life. And you know the old saying, man plans and God laughs? It's ultimately true in terms of what I experienced. So at the same time that I was studying gangs, I fell madly in love with the man who was going to end up to be my husband, who suffers me and my life and my passions, who's right here, my husband Mark, who's an amazing man. And there I was, studying gangs, dressed in black, in South LA, with my little hard-ass attitude, and who should I fall in love with but a commander from the Los Angeles Police Department. And when they say opposites attract, they were absolutely positively right. But there was a kicker to this arrangement. Not only was my husband-to-be the love of my life, a member of the LAPD command staff, he came with a dividend. And the dividend came out of some sadness, but turned out to be the greatest joy of my life. Mark was a widower when I met him, and he had a little, tiny, mischievous, beautiful daughter. And so, as one of my friends said, Mark and his daughter were my instant family. And I am really lucky tonight because our daughter, who I later legally adopted and became a part of my life in ways I cannot even begin to describe to you, is here with us tonight. So over here is my beloved daughter, Shannon, who's undoubtedly just wanting to kill me now. Now, I tell you all of this not to present you with my family scrapbook, but because I am very, very candid about how my life with them unfolded as I was studying gangs in Los Angeles. And there were parallels and there was divergence, but there was time when I talked about my relationship with Mark, how I worried about raising Shannon, and I was talking to stone-cold gangbangers about what I was doing. And I had people who would say to me, "What are you doing?" And what I was doing was the most precious thing of all, which was relating and learning and finding out about their lives, learning about my life, and sort of encountering a journey that I could never have imagined in my wildest dreams. So this book, that I'm sure, as you all have known or have found out, the proceeds of which are going to benefit Homeboy Industries, which is one of the places that is described in the book, among many other places in Los Angeles. This book represents many aspects of life, and it represents many aspects of love. And most importantly, it represents many aspects of redemption. Personal redemption for me, the redemption that I saw young men and young women struggle for in their own lives, and the redemption that all of us need to encounter, not in a spiritual way, not in a religious way, the redemption we need to encounter when we recognize that we are all the same, that we breathe the same air, that we have the same dreams and desires for our children, that we all want to share in a better world. Now, I could go on and on. I could read passages from the book, but I think it would mean so much more to everybody in the room if you could hear, however briefly, from one of the quite extraordinary people I have gotten to know. Now, I'll give you a fair warning. The person I'm going to introduce is not in the book. He's somebody that I have gotten to know in the past couple of years. So I don't want you to buy the book and go home and try to figure out who he is, because he'll probably be in my next book. But this is a young man that I have had the great privilege to encounter, to get to know, to work beside. And he has a story and an understanding of gang life up close and personal, to invoke the cliche. And so I want to turn the microphone over for just a few moments to somebody who I love and admire. I don't want him to tell you about his old life. I want him to tell you about his new life and what he does with his life now, what his family is like, and what he does as someone who's a pivotal person at Homeboy Industries. So to illustrate, to teach, for you to hear yet another story, it's my great pleasure this evening to introduce Wilfredo Lopez.